All right. Got Schwartz in the house. Gotta like that. Hi, my name is Fernando Ariola. Welcome everyone to the Nest January community meeting, first meeting of 2026. And it's good to see everyone here, as well as people starting to filter in on our new Google Meet platform. Excited to see that. I'm just going to quickly go through a few things about Nest and a few opportunities that are coming up. Some of this you may know about, some of it you might not know about. We can discuss this as the meeting goes on, and I think it'll be pretty helpful and interesting. There's a lot of stuff on the table as we look into JFM or January, February, March for Nest. Go ahead and advance.
Can I ask, you could clear the dishwasher?
The Naperville Environment and Sustainability Task Force informs, advises city government and Naperville residents and businesses to identify, prioritize, implement sustainability initiatives and greenhouse gas reduction, with the goal of making Naperville a better place. That's the bottom line. We're always up for getting more and more volunteers. If there's anything you're interested in, there's stuff there are opportunities within Nest, and we're looking for, it doesn't matter if you're a young person, if you're working full-time, we can customize volunteer opportunities based on what your needs are. And also there's always something where you can help Nest make a difference. So just keep that in mind as you kind of hear this tonight, because we're going to talk a lot about issues that we're looking forward for 2026. And if there's opportunities that you kind of glom onto, definitely follow up with us.
Can you see okay over
there? Some upcoming Nest meetings. So February at the Nichols Library, and I might pass this off to Joe to do a little bit of color commentary. I love this name, From Fire to Wire, Why Energy is About to Feel Very Different. Joe, do you want to say a few words about this, or?
Not really, no.
Okay. The name says it all, but basically, when I read this, because I've heard a lot about people saying like, yeah, we like to burn things, we like to burn natural gas, we like to burn coal. It's very.
Here, I'll do 2 seconds. So just
when I talk like that, Joe's like, get him off.
No, you'll get this back in a second. So the idea of the next presentation is to kind of talk about the future of energy. So there's a lot of information, and one of our mandates is to inform the community. We're in the middle of a huge energy transition. I think a lot of people assume things are the way they were 10 or even 5 years ago. And so there'll be a lot of data that we're leveraging graphs and information on trends in electricity generation, trends in usage, and then as well as greenhouse gas emissions, how that affects greenhouse gas emissions. So if you don't like charts, don't come to this presentation. There's going to be a lot of, you'll see charts and data, and I think it'll be informative and interesting since I'm doing it.
You know, and the other thing about this that's really interesting is there's a big argument we hear from various stakeholders is that if Naperville doesn't sign the IMEA contract, the coal plant will continue to run. Everyone always says the coal plant, why do you care? The coal plant's going to run either way. And I think that's an interesting point. It's like, maybe it will, maybe it won't. And I think some of the stuff in this Fire to Wire meeting is going to be very thought provocative, because you know what? If you sign with IMEA and extend for 30 years, that's basically a bet on no new energy technology is going to come along that's going to be more efficient than the coal. Right now, the IMEA people say it's the source is close to the plant, it's efficient, we've got it down. Artificial intelligence is driving energy use up, so it's a fait accompli. And I think it's basically no. You're betting that there's not going to be any new, more efficient energy coming over the next 30 years, which I think this meeting will kind of say there's actually a good odds that there's going to be a lot of different energy coming over the next 30 years. Quickly, March, can you go back for just a moment? March 2025, this just talks about like how the fossil fuels are coming. Oh, I thought that was going to be the March meeting. I apologize. All right, can't carry on. This is the March meeting. So this is great. So basically, if anyone's interested in landscaping their yard in a more sustainable way that's good for the environment but also beautiful, this landscaping meeting should be awesome. The Conservation Foundation has done things over the last few years to really dial this up, and the city of Naperville has actually taken a lot of our natural spaces that are city-owned areas and kind of transitioned to more natural, sustainable vegetation in those areas that control stormwater drainage and that kind of thing. So this should be awesome. So I think it'll be interesting, even if you're not a gardener, but if you are a gardener, I think that it ups the ante even more. So this March meeting should be fantastic going into the spring season. Climate coach. Joe, can I call? Do you want to talk about climate coach? Keep it moving.
So if anybody is interested in putting solar panels on their house, putting an EV charger in their house, getting a heat pump, we've got a group of people who volunteer to share information about that. So if you just go to our website, or actually talk to me after the meeting, you can go to the website, click on Climate Coach, and then say, I'm interested in, like you saw Fernando was talking about native planting. There's a climate coach on how to do that, that can provide more information. Basically, they can answer your questions and get you started down that path, and answer any questions that you might have about cost, like the incentives, the cost of doing it. And it's all people who already have implemented those technologies, and so they understand how they're using them, and so they can help you put it into your house and potentially save some money, as well as doing something good for the environment.
That's a great program. So really exciting things when people transition. Couple of things coming up that are, if you want to get out. So a lot of the stuff of these are meetings, but getting out to the community. Styrofoam recycling is coming up this April, Saturday, April 11th. Start collecting your styrofoam now. This has been really successful. I see Jim in the audience, Ben, Beth. This has been kind of a group effort for several organizations, and it's really been successful. And I think we're going to try to have 3 of these this year. And when I say we, I mean that kind of consortium of the Noon Lions Club, the City of Naperville, and Nest. But great opportunities at the Route 59 train station. Start collecting your styrofoam now, and we'll see if we can beat the record in terms of collecting even more than we did last time. The DuPage River Sweep is coming up in April too. This is a little bit different. It's basically kind of keeping healthy waterways and cleaning up stuff in the waterways. People of all ages can do this. If you have kids or grandkids or want to have an outing with someone to have some fun and do something good for the environment, this is a great opportunity. And anyone who's interested in those that's not familiar with it, feel free to talk to me. Feel free to talk to Ben. He's into it, and we can definitely get something going here. All right. Upcoming city council meeting. So next Tuesday, right over there, we expect, like all the indicators are saying, there's going to be a vote on the CARES Critical Data Center. Please try to attend that meeting and share your thoughts on what you think the right thing is for the Naperville community. I think this is critical, no pun intended, for that data center, but it also, I think, sets a precedent for how we assess future data centers potentially in other places too. So that's a big one. So January 20th. There's a couple QR codes here if you want to provide public comment or email city council. Put your phone to work. February 3rd. So that's basically the one right after that, 2 weeks later. All indicators are there's going to be a vote on the IMEA contract. And this is going to be either thumbs up or thumbs down. Do we want to pursue it or not? So that's another big one. We'll also be encouraging people to go to that too, just to make sure that folks know where the community lies on these big decisions for the city. So these are 2 big ones. We'll see how that plays out. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Teresa now for the main event.
Thank you. Unlike Joe and Fernando, I do need some notes. I am Teresa Huss. I'm part of the leadership team here at Nest. Thank you for joining us as we look at the progress we made, the goals we want to achieve, and what the future of sustainability looks like in Naperville. We wanted to start by giving you a little bit of historical context on Naperville and sustainability. I think a lot of people don't realize that Naperville has a really rich history of environmental stewardship and sustainability. And, we are not outside the norm here at Nest. Our environmental stewardship in Naperville goes back decades. In 1966, we created the Park District to protect green spaces and encourage outdoor activities. We were the first city in Illinois to do curbside recycling in 1986. The Conservation Foundation moved their headquarters to McDonald Farm in 97. And in 2017, we joined the Greenest Region Compact, which is a regional initiative aimed at building sustainable communities through collaborative efforts. So these milestones all reflect a long-standing dedication to sustainability in Naperville, and they set the stage for the formation of the Naperville Environment and Sustainability Task Force, which continues to build on this legacy. We were formed in 2018 by a group of citizens, and initially our focus was on transitioning to cleaner energy. But the mission pretty quickly expanded to encompass broader sustainability goals. And that led to discussions with City Council about forming an advisory board. And in March of 2019, the City Council unanimously voted to endorse NEST as a city task force. And one of the things I want to mention is that at the time we became a city task force, we were given the mandate to develop a sustainability plan for the city. So this is not something that came solely from NEST. This is something that the City Council asked us to do. So over the next 2 years, a huge group of volunteers with a lot of diverse backgrounds, and I see some of them, like Carl, are here today, and Jody was online. They spent many, many hours working, over 5,000 hours, working to develop Sustainable Naperville 2036. And that laid the foundation for the city's sustainability plan. And it aligned with global goals and recommendations to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 4% a year. So that, like I said, took about 2 years, was finished in the spring of 2021, and in August of that year, city staff and NEST presented objectives for an ongoing long-term sustainability plan. Can you say there? No, go back. It had objectives in 6 areas, and 5 of these are the committees we still use today. So if you are interested in waste, energy, transportation, we have committees for you to help with. They also divided them by timeline, ones that were currently underway or going to be completed very quickly, ones that were scheduled to be completed short-term in about 18 months by December of 2022, and then the 5-year plan to be done between 2023 and 2028. And our city manager, who's still our city manager, Doug Krieger, said at the time that this was a groundbreaking, not a ribbon cutting. This was the beginning of the plan. And he said he hoped it would be a wonderful playbook that would help us make progress very quickly. And Councilman Holzhauer, there were 3 sitting council members today who were there at that time: Benny White, Patrick Kelly, and Ian Holzhauer. And Ian Holzhauer said, beyond tonight, I hope that everyone in the room, all the voters in the community, look at this as a blueprint and hold us accountable. It provides us a verifiable checklist of items where voters can grade how we've done, which is kind of what we're doing tonight. So this shows what the original plan looked like. We were pretty excited at the time because the very first one under municipal leadership is create sustainability coordinator position. And that was Ben Hyde. Ta-da! So we accomplished that in June of 2021, even before the sustainability workshop. So over the years, some of these objectives became obsolete. Other accomplishments that weren't envisioned at the time were added. And each year, Ben, our sustainability manager, creates an annual sustainability plan to kind of show us how we're doing. But we wanted to look back at the original 2021 work plan just to see where we've made progress and where we still need some work. So we're going to go through the original plan, and then after that, Ben's going to come up and talk about some of the more recent initiatives, the newer initiatives that weren't imagined at the time. So the first area is building and development, which may not sound that exciting, but it has an outsized impact because 75% of the emissions in Naperville come from how we construct our buildings and how we use that. And that's just not Naperville, that's pretty much every city. So in the 2036 plan, our building and development goals centered on three things: making new buildings future ready and low emission, reducing greenhouse gases during construction, and educating builders on why these practices matter. And the plan also acknowledged a key reality. The minimum building codes, they set a floor, not a ceiling. So if we only meet the minimum, we're not going to reach our long-term climate goals. So I have a snapshot for each of the areas, and unfortunately, in building and development, we really haven't met many of the goals we set out in 2021. And the main reason is just what I said. The minimum codes just don't deliver the emissions reductions we need. As long as we only meet those basic requirements, we're not going to see meaningful change. But we have something now that we didn't have back when we did Naperville 2036 and when we did the 2021 Sustainability Work Plan. And that's the Illinois Stretch Codes. Those were created under CEJA, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. They came last year, and they're designed to help cities reach net zero ready performance by 2032. When a city adopts the Illinois Stretch Codes, that becomes the new minimum standard. And I mean, a huge shout out to Barbara Benson, who's the chair of building and development. She has been working with developers. She provides that updated letter every year, working with city council members, working with staff to help educate them on why this is so very important. Because meeting our goals in this area basically comes down to that decision. If we adopt the stretch codes, it'll raise energy efficiency performance, and this is for new buildings and major renovations. It'll lower operating costs, and it'll reduce emissions. Without it, we're not going to have the long-term goals that we hope to achieve. So I know you guys are all probably sick about hearing about energy. Maybe it's just me because I'm married to the energy chair. But this is the other area that's been so important over the last 4 years. This is where we've spent the majority of our time, and that's because energy, just like building and development, affects everything from emissions and building performance to affordability and resilience. So our long-term goals in energy focused on reducing emissions, improving energy efficiency, and expanding access to clean energy. So some of our objectives in this area were things like permitting third-party power purchase agreements, developing microgrid capacity, benchmarking the energy use in city buildings. But the major constraint to almost all of these is our contract with IMEA, which doesn't allow a lot of these. And that contract, which most of you know, extends till 2035. That is the earliest. So when they talk about, oh, if we re-sign, our energy bills are going to suddenly go up, nothing's going to change for 9 years, for better or for worse. The agreement we have with them really limits our ability to pursue alternative energy sources and procurement strategies. So we have had some successes in energy, but that barrier makes our goals harder to reach, especially those that are tied to clean energy development. So when we look at our progress snapshot for energy, the city's done some great work. We have done a great job of promoting the night core efficiency programs, which was one of our goals. They removed barriers to solar implementation on schools. District 203 is going to be putting solar on schools as part of their carbon action plan. We have nearly finished our LED conversion for the city streetlights. We have a demand response program. Unfortunately, we have yet to incentivize any businesses to take part of it. I think they're going to be increasing that. And we have almost 20,000 residents signed up for the Empower Dashboard to help residents better manage their own energy use. But overall, progress has been slow. Most of the biggest goals that will have the most impact remain stalled largely because of our current energy contract, and it restricts our ability to meet them. So to meet our climate goals, we'll need to find creative ways to work within for the next 9 years and eventually, hopefully, beyond the constraints of IMEA. So municipal leadership is the backbone of our sustainability work. It's about how we govern, how we measure progress, and how we coordinate across departments and the community. And we are actually extremely lucky in Naperville. We have a sustainability manager, we have a city council and city staff who care about sustainability. So we're starting from a place of strength. Our goals in this area focused on governance, metrics, and coordination. Things like benchmarking, publishing regular sustainability reports, and creating cross-departmental systems to track progress. We also set goals for community engagement, and that's something that we've advocated for a long time at Nest. We want residents, businesses, and staff to be part of the process because we build a culture of shared responsibility and transparency to have a better chance of achieving our sustainability goals. So we've made some foundational progress in this area. You know, like I said, we hired a sustainability manager. We've completed some key inventories and assessments. The biggest one of those is the greenhouse gas inventory. Ben has been extremely active in our community, and you guys might not know, but he is constantly working with Peyton on outreach and education in the community with residents, businesses, schools. He is on the steering committee of the District 203 Carbon Action Plan. He applies for grants to help us with our sustainability work. So having that sustainability manager has made a huge difference in the 4 years he's been here. But we still have progress to make. Although Ben provides a lot of education on green purchasing, we still would like to see a formal program implemented. We would love to see council mandate compliance with IPCC standards. And a lot of these things are things that need to be mandated by council. So we need to work with council and have you guys encourage council to make environmental sustainability a priority. We also want a long-term sustainability plan. You know, it's great to get annual updates, it's great to have goals, it's great to communicate, but we want something that'll track our progress over the long term so we can make informed decisions. So strengthening municipal leadership is key to achieving our sustainability goals. So natural resources is usually a less controversial one, luckily. It focuses on land, vegetation, open spaces, and the systems that support biodiversity and community health. And our goals in this area included tree planting, encouraging native and deep-rooted vegetation, restoring open spaces, incentivizing cleaner landscaping practices. We also were looking for zoning updates that protect public ecosystems, rooftop greening for high energy use buildings. And this is another area where we've made some great progress. If you look at our snapshot, we've expanded our Arbor Day tree skills. Now we even have rain barrels and composting, which is awesome. We've launched the Conservation at Home program, which does wonderful work. We sponsor events like the DuPage River Suite, No More Till Mother's Day. And so we are really lucky that we have the Conservation Foundation here in Naperville, which works on a lot of these natural resources programs. But like in other areas, we'd like to see more of this codified. We want to see this in city code. We want to have developers required to follow these things. Rather than we have a tree ordinance in Naperville, we have some things, but we really, we don't want to rely on the kindness of developers. So we'd love to see some of these things get into the city code. Our next area is transportation and mobility, and that shapes how we move through Naperville. So this section focuses on safer streets for biking and walking, cleaner vehicles, reducing vehicle miles traveled, and it's about making sustainable choices easier and more accessible, which isn't something people always think about. Easier, safer, and more accessible. So our goals in this area included biking and walking, transitioning the municipal fleet to electric, and preparing new developments to be EV ready. We also committed to engaging the community around sustainable transportation. We wanted to help residents track their own impact and shift toward lower carbon travel. So we had ambitious goals, but they were really practical in this area, and we made some really good strides. We have a complete streets policy, and that means we're not just making, even though we're, a car-heavy suburb, we're not just about cars. We want to have bike lanes. We want to have sidewalk. The majority of Naperville has sidewalks on at least one side of the road. We want to have a safe routes to school assessment so that kids have a safe way to get there. We also, one of the big things we've done is the community walkability and bikeability assessment. That is supposed to be done by the end of 2026. We've hired a firm, A. Epstein & Sons, and one of the things we love about them is they are really engaging the community in the work they're doing, trying to get a lot of community feedback. So, like I said, we are a car-based suburb. Residents really care about the transportation sector. In fact, if you don't know, we have 1 EV for every 10 residents in Naperville. DuPage County leads Illinois. So this is something that is super important to residents. Sorry, my sidekick is sleeping apparently.
No, I was fine.
He's heard this before, so he's like, oh God. So waste, again, it may not sound exciting, but it's actually one of our most successful areas. And we are thrilled with how residents have responded. Composting, e-waste, hazardous materials, we've had really strong community participation in this sector. So our goals in this area focused on reducing landfill waste, expanding composting, recycling outcomes. We looked at construction and demolition waste, again, going back to the development in Naperville and how we can make that more sustainable. Long-term zero waste planning. And one thing I wanted to say about waste, even though it's super important and we love building those habits, those community habits of sustainability. We moved here from the East Coast, from Boston, where, we would return our bottles and cans, and very strong recycling efforts. So that's wonderful. We want to build those habits so residents expect those things. But waste only accounts for 1% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So although it is incredibly important, we want to keep doing it. As we look at a long-term plan, we want to think about where we have the most impact. What are the things that are going to really reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in Naperville? So, thank you.
I'm trying to go back.
So some of the progress we've made, we've launched free e-waste recycling. We've expanded the hazardous waste collection. We've developed seasonal composting programs. We've also started some things that Ben is going to talk about that weren't even on the radar back then. So this is an area where we've had great success. We would, again, like to see some of the stuff codified, like the construction and demolition recycling. We want developers to have to act sustainably. We'd like to see a zero waste plan formally done. We'd like to see a reusable bag, bring your own container initiatives. So we made a ton of progress and there's still some work to go. But that is our snapshot of where we are since our 2021 work plan. And now I want to introduce Ben Millsness, our sustainability manager. He's going to talk about some of the things that have happened in the last year and that Naperville is doing. And then when he finishes, I'm going to return and talk about kind of where we move forward and how a sustainability climate action plan could help us achieve our goals.
Didn't want to interrupt any comments. And that picture is too big. Every pore on my
I
face.
think they have a stick with your head on it.
Some people probably like that.
Hi, my name is Ben. I'm the sustainability manager. Thank you for all being here, for your interest, and to all of you at Nest for continuing to work with us, push us where we need to be pushed. A lot of this stuff, I came in not from municipal government, but from the private sector, and I thought, like, hey, I've got all these great policy ideas for the environment, and I was told, you don't get to tell us what policies we're doing. We tell you. So it's been a learning experience, but we've gotten some things done. I think we've got some positive momentum. I just want to talk about some of the things. Some of them will actually be things that you mentioned in your presentation. They'll just be a little bit more information on where we are as a city. And then I'll probably skip some slides because there's a lot of stuff that, maybe this can be shared via the Nest website. There's some really good information at the end about like what residents can do to contribute, what businesses can do, and organizations, incentive programs. So I'll just launch into, these 6 kind of sustainability chapters that were already highlighted in Teresa's presentation. These came from a past sustainability report. Nest leveraged them for their report. We kind of stuck with it. It helps us organize our thinking and our planning, because otherwise the whole umbrella of sustainability can be a little daunting, can lack focus. So I'm going to give 2 or 3 updates on each of these 6 areas and see if there are any questions. Do you want questions at the end of mine or at the end of the end? We'll save questions for the very end. Okay, so without further ado. All right, municipal leadership. One of the things that Teresa highlighted was a really big foundational piece for us to understand our environmental baseline, which is our greenhouse gas inventory. It's based on 2022 full year data. It took us a little bit longer to get the work done. We had some cases of scope creep with other members of staff. But we got there. It was published earlier in 2025. This is our baseline for which we'll tap into to try and establish specific goals, maybe timelines, emissions reductions. I don't know where City Council is on that, but I'm confident Nest will help us keep pushing. So that's a big deal. That's available on our webpage. Thanks to Joe for reminding me to put it up there. One of the things that we do have is, maybe it's not the full sustainability dashboard that some people would like to see, but we do have a dashboard that we update at least every year. We've been publishing it for a couple of years. It's on ArcGIS Open Data. And what we do is we look at where we have metrics around key performance indicators for sustainability. So water conservation, energy efficiency, amount of solar installed in the community, EV charging stations, tree canopy. And where we do have good data, we ask ourselves, does this tell any sort of story that we can convey? And then link people to resources, incentives, things that they can do to continue to promote that behavior. One of the things that we plan to do, hopefully this year, is add a whole new component focused on the city's renewable energy program that people voluntarily contribute to, that incentivizes any number of things around energy efficiency, EV charging stations, solar on your roof, etc. We also maintain really regular participation in some great regional cohorts to help us stay on top of trends, make connections to others in the industry. We're regularly involved with Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, the Midwest Climate Collaborative, which is a consortium of government, universities and colleges, and nonprofits in the Midwest, where we focus on climate in the Midwest. We have different issues that we deal with rather than, say, on the coasts. So it's a great group. Yeah, can we advance, please? Thank you. Talking about energy. One of the things that Peyton was introduced, Peyton Shield is our sustainability specialist. She's been with me a little over a year. She is a native of Naperville, and very happy to be working with me on sustainability here in her community. One of the things we did this past year is our 2-person team, really, Peyton, we took over full administration of all of our energy efficiency and renewable energy incentive programs, which is good. It's more work. Peyton gets to hear from a lot of disgruntled people sometimes. But but we feel like we can actually make the program better and reduce barriers to people who really want to invest in their home or their business and making it more sustainable. One of the things we really want to focus on that I mentioned is getting out, promoting the renewable energy program this year. We have healthy contributions, but the last 2 years we've run out of money early. And that's a big problem for people to plan for that when they're really making an investment, hoping to have some help from the city. So we really want to promote that. We want to work with Nest and all of you to get more people, especially more businesses, to contribute to the program. The other thing that happened this past year is the city updated our net metering policy to do a couple of things. Better account for energy in and energy out at homes and businesses, but also removing what we did have in place was a 10 kilowatt cap on residential solar installations. That's gone. You basically have open season to go all the way up to a megawatt if you have that much room for land. So that's a good thing. Most of us want people to have access to be able to install more. So yeah, some changes. Building and development, stretch code. Barbara has got to be exercising a lot of patience with the city staff and city council. We're actively involved with you guys, with Barbara and others. Teresa, you met with us, trying to understand what the stretch code is, what it looks like, what it costs, what its benefits are. We've been meeting regularly with groups like the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance and Slipstream and Nest to try and understand what is this going to look like? Can the city adopt it? As you might imagine, with more stringent codes, the development community is coming out full bore against this. So right now we're tentatively scheduled to adopt basically the Illinois Base Energy Code. We just lost our chief building official to another community, so I don't know what that looks like from a timing perspective, but we'll keep working on the stretch code. One of the things that I'm looking forward to, probably some others who know about this, the city of Aurora they've got a brand new sustainability director who has a focus. She worked with Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, and she was on the team that came up with the stretch code basically for the state. They're really going to make a push to adopt it, but they're getting some pushback too. So they're going to do a full comprehensive study in Aurora of what stretch code costs will look like versus cost savings to give us a more local perspective so we can know what is the reality of this. So we work closely with Allison and Aurora, looking forward to their results. I got a couple more on there, sorry. I try to speed up this. Too many words. What's that?
Finish the first bullets. Now you're.
Yeah, I'm on number 2. Thank you. One of the things that the city does when we have developers come in with ideas for a new project or a major rehab is we have people from all over the city, from our planning team, our engineering team, our water and electric utilities, fire department, meet with developers to talk through their plans and figure out how is this going to work? How much is it going to cost you to do this? What are our rules and regulations so that we have safety and play by the rules of the city? One of us, Peyton or me, usually Peyton right now, is on every one of those calls, at least the ones that are applicable. Like if it's a single family home that isn't really going to be changing much, we might not sit on that call. We try and gauge what's important, but we're always involved in the weekly DRT call so we can understand what concepts are coming in. And then finally, we're working with our code enforcement team and with input from the Conservation Foundation on the city's current code requirements for natural landscaping. They were written back in the 90s as part of a push in the state, and they're kind of weird in their wording. So we're trying to figure out how to, again, reduce barriers, make it easier for people to figure out what's allowed, what plants would be good in this climate, and base it on help from our expert friends at Conservation Foundation. Transportation and mobility. Having the political will in Naperville, we worked with Nest and their transportation team and many other partners in the community over a couple of years to try and gauge what the community wants in terms of biking, walking active transportation. And so we did a lot of work, and finally we actually got money to hire a consultant to do an updated bike and pedestrian plan, which is huge. We had over 500 residents add to an interactive map ahead of this so that we have more people telling us we really want to understand what people want. A couple things coming up. There's going to be more interactive things to engage. Saturday, January 31st at the Fort Hill Activity Center, there's going to be a pop-up event where our consultants and transportation team will be getting input from people or seeking input on the plan. And then in April 23rd, there's going to be a public open house here, I think in the meeting rooms A and B across the way. So that's exciting. And then a minor win, but with some good data to back it up, is we had the Van Buren parking deck is north of us a few blocks. When I got here, we had 2 EV charging stations from like 12, 14 years ago that hadn't been working in years. And so we finally got funding. And again, you know, took a while for me to get other city staff on board with making this a priority, but we did finally replace those 2 level 2 chargers. We've had over 1,100 sessions of charging since the installation this past fall. So it's being well used. They're being well used. I got 2 more, natural resources and waste. So I'll try and get through this without too much more. Our electric lawn equipment incentive program, we launched that in 2022 as a pilot to see if we incentivize people at the rate of $50, would they go out and buy electric battery powered, cleaner, quieter landscape equipment, lawnmowers, snow blowers, edgers, trimmers, leaf blowers. And that money, we had enough money for 40 rebates. It was gone in 3 days. So ever since we budgeted $10,000 a year for 200 rebates a year, every year we get rid of them all. And so that's 640 pieces of equipment were incentivized in the past 3+ years. Imagine the impact in the neighborhood on your block of not breathing in that gas and hearing quite so loud equipment. So that's launching again March 1st. The city was honored to receive the 2025 Conservation at Home Award from the Conservation Foundation. It was in recognition of kind of a creative partnership that we've been working on where the city promotes and helps cover the cost of conservation at home certification for residents. And the Conservation Foundation does their part by going out and walking people's yards with them and making recommendations of what they can do to be more sustainable. The first year that we did this was 2024. We had 22 certifications and 57 site assessments performed. So yard assessments. This past year, we had 20 certifications and 82 assessments performed. So hopefully 82 future certifications, depending on how interested people are in making the investment, doing the work. So it's really, we're looking forward to another year of this. It's a great partnership. And then also the city, Teresa mentioned, we have our own native vegetation management program where the city works with our consultant to figure out what green space does the city own? Where do we pay contractors to go mow turf grass? Well, we don't need turf grass. Where do we have invasive plants that are no good for the for biodiversity and things like that? So currently we have around 23 acres of land that are in some stage of being repaired, replaced, transitioned to natives or prairie. We're evaluating 13 more sites. I think, Peyton, what is that? Six sites? Was 23 acres? So 5 sites. Sorry, it's right there. So exciting. It's a good marriage to have the city doing something at the same time as residents are. It really, we need to reestablish this patchwork prairie and biodiversity habitat because we've gotten rid of all of it to build our communities. So really good programs that we're excited about and proud of. And finally, waste and recycling. We had a big year with some specialty programs. We launched actually 2 programs on June 2nd, both as pilot programs. We launched the food scrap composting program where residents can drop off their food scraps for free at 2 different locations in Naperville. We launched June 2nd, had some initial contamination issues, but we really worked on our messaging using social media, community partners like Nest to help us get the word out This is food scraps only, folks. No plastic bags, no yard waste. We saw fast improvement. We continued the program until the end of Groot's organic season, which was December 12th. They closed down for 3 months in the winter. And that's yard waste too. It improved so much in terms of participation and reduced contamination with the stuff we didn't want that we're bringing it back for the full organic season this year, launching March 16th, going through the end of the program in December. So December 18th, I think, December 11th, something like that. So that's exciting. Clothing and textile recycling program. We launched that at our Fort Hill Environmental Collection Campus, as Fernando calls it, our mega recycling center or something like that. I can't rebrand just yet. I don't have buy-in, but I've been looking for a way to do clothing and textile recycling for so long. Bill and I were just talking about this. There's so many bad actors out there that take clothes people drop off for recycling and they ship it to developing nations, and people open up the cartons and they're full of moldy clothes and things that we wouldn't want. So thankfully we found through our trusted electronic waste recycling vendor, they offer clothing and textile recycling. So in the first, I want to say 3+ months, we collected almost 18,000 pounds for reuse, recycling, repurposing. That program is permanent. New exciting development, the state of Illinois EPA is covering the cost of a software program called Recycle Coach, which you can get on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, and you can type in your address and your keyword of what you're looking to dispose of, and it'll tell you with information that we built into it along with DuPage County. If you recycle it, compost it, where is the drop-off program for food scraps, what are the hours for the clothing and textile recycling program, where can you deal with household hazardous waste. It's a really helpful tool. Our communications team is very careful with new launches to make sure that we know exactly what we're doing and we don't screw up. So it's a very slow launch, but we're planning to launch this month, hopefully, God willing. And then finally, Teresa mentioned the two styrofoam recycling. Styrofoam is a brand name. The material is expanded polystyrene foam. Just to get nerdy with you, but yeah, we had 2 events collecting about 50 cubic yards or almost a full semi-trailer of styrofoam this past year. We're looking. Jim continues to push us. Beth has been a tremendous help and inspiration too. We want to get something regular on the rotation. We want to have a regular spot, regular time of the week or month where people can know they can take their styrofoam throughout the year. Having a really long, tough sales process with some of our fellow staff to get this up and running, but we think we've got some good ideas that we're still working on. So in the absence of that ultimate political will from others, we're increasing our styrofoam events to 3 this year, which is the most that Dart Container Company that provides us the free semi-trailer will do. So at least we're up in it, we're improving, offering more. Yeah. And then I just wanted to mention this before I close out, but we've got a couple more slides. I'm not going to read them. Got a slide on some things that residents can do to get involved or to help. The next slide is for what businesses and other organizations like nonprofits or churches can do to help. And then I've got a slide that just shows where the various city of Naperville incentives, where they're funded, the different programs that are covered by the renewable energy program versus INEA versus the city of Naperville. And the last slide is NICOR. So I know NICOR isn't the favorite of everybody. They are a fossil fuel company. They are a very valued employer in Naperville. They do offer a lot of assistance with energy efficiency, both at home and work. So I always like to talk about some of their free assessments, some of their free weatherization kits, because we, like it or not, we have natural gas for a lot of our heating right now. So if we can take advantage of some ways to be more efficient and save money at our home business, I say let's go for it. Yeah, I'll stop there and I'll give it back to Teresa, and then we'll talk with you in a little bit.
Thank you so much. You can see why having a sustainability manager has made a real difference in the city. So our 2036 plan and the original 2021 work plan really gave us a strong foundation, but that plan was completed almost 5 years ago. So the landscape has changed technologically, environmentally, and in terms of community expectations. So the question is, where do we go from here? And the answer is, it is past time to refresh our long-term vision. When we did the Naperville 2036 plan, the idea was that it would be updated every 2 to 4 years. So again, that was started in 2019. We need to move forward. And the next essential step, just go next. The next essential step is a climate action plan. And it's especially timely now because, as we both mentioned, we finished our greenhouse gas inventory. You know, when you do a greenhouse gas inventory, you're not just looking for how you're doing at that moment in time. You use it to track your progress over the short and long term. In fact, in our greenhouse gas inventory, and you can check it out if you haven't, it is online. It recommends that we use a climate action plan to get better goals. So this is the next evolution of our sustainability work. It's a strategic roadmap that lays out how we can reduce our emissions, improve resiliency, and prepare for the future. And we need something clear, measurable goals, short-term and long-term. It's great to see how we're doing on the categories that Ben puts up. I find it super interesting. If you haven't looked at the sustainability portion of the Naperville City website, Ben does a fantastic job. But we are looking for goals for specific actions, tied to specific actions across transportation, buildings, energy, land use. This would also strengthen our ability to compete for state and federal grants. Now, I know right now the federal landscape is not looking great. It's not going to stay that way forever. And Illinois is a fantastic place for environmental sustainability. So getting a formal plan in place puts us in a better position for some of these grants. It's been 5 years, made progress, but we need a new roadmap. To move forward, we need City Council to fund and authorize the CAP process. And Ben raised a great point. He operates under the aegis of the city staff, under the direction of City Council. I know Ben would be extremely supportive of climate action plan, but we need council to fund this process so we can set updated goals based on the city's priorities. I encourage all of you, especially once we make the decisions about the data center, at the next meeting and IMEA, it's time after that to move forward with the climate action plan. So I appreciate everyone coming tonight. This work only succeeds because the community cares about it and is involved. We have a lot of our committee chairs here tonight that can answer questions on pretty much any of these sustainability topics. We encourage you to let us know what your priorities are for sustainability. We're going to be setting our own goals for 2026 soon. The leadership team is going to be meeting. Let us know what you want us to focus on in the next year, and let us know where you want to push the city. So thank you for coming tonight. If anyone has any questions or feedback, Ben is here and would be happy to answer any. The rest of the NEST team is here.
How does that climate action plan differ from work and ability?
Maybe, Teresa, can you repeat the question?
Yes. So Bill wants to know, hey, we did the 2036 plan. How is this different? I mean, in a couple of ways. First of all, the 2036 plan they did develop the 2021 city work plan out of that. But that was a limited set of goals that the city staff put forth. It was also not a funded mandate. So city council there were 3 separate votes during the environmental workshop that we did in August of 2021. They endorsed all 3 parts of the plan, but that's not the same as funding all 3 parts of the plan. Now, not everything was done, even things like building codes that could be done without funding. But we need the city to commit, and we need the council to commit to setting a climate action plan and tying it to specific actions in each of the areas. And that, I think, we set a lot of goals. We need something that we can measure every single year to see how we're making progress. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really been lacking. So hopefully we can get the city on board. I feel like there was a lot of distraction in the last few years with our energy contract, with other things. But hopefully it'd be a great time in the spring to move forward with that, to get it funded, and to get the city council and the city staff to commit to doing these actions and tracking every single year our greenhouse gas reductions. Yes.
So part of that plan would be putting numbers against it so that we go to the city with what kind of numbers, what kind of budget they need to fund it, and what is budget target?
So the question was, what kind of budget? Would we go to the city with the budget? I mean, the first thing we're going to ask for is to authorize budget to do the climate action plan. So that's the first step.
So would that be consultants?
Yes, it would be consultants. I mean, Nest has done a lot of work. We want to continue to work with the city. But at this point, we really want to get a consultant in to help us develop the climate action plan. We can look at 203 and how they developed theirs. I mean, theirs is a carbon action plan. We want something, obviously, they don't have every single area that the city has, but it would be a similar process. And then, yeah, they're going to need to figure out annually how to meet those targets and what kind of budget is needed. And we need them to commit in the budget process. That's one of the reasons we are raising this now, because the budget process, it is too late for 2026, but it's not too late to start setting things in motion and budgeting for this in the future. Lisa?
I just think if we get the Keras data center, everything goes downhill the other way by an order of magnitude. So I think there really needs to be a lot of energy in terms of preventing catastrophic pushes towards goblin energy like there's no tomorrow.
So the question comment was about the Keras data center and how that's going to affect our energy usage. And one of the things that's really important to know is that the nature of our contract and the nature of our municipality and our electric system, we have limitations that other cities don't have in terms of a data center. They can't bring, need to have it open. They can't bring, you hear Beyonce, bring your own clean energy. That doesn't work for us.
Into the IMEA, and that is another huge problem.
Yes, so in fact, Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about the RECs and the data center? Or if not, I'll talk about it, I don't care.
No, go ahead, you're on a roll.
Okay. Joe knows this better than me, but we have a full take and pay contract with IMEA. So that means whatever electricity we use, we need to buy from IMEA. Whether that's the data center, they can buy RECs, which is great, I guess, to support some solar development somewhere, but we are not buying any less electricity from IMEA. So our greenhouse gas emissions are only going to go up with this data center. There's just no way around that. And that's we have a couple of concerns with the data center. Nest's position has been that we would like to see a moratorium. We want to see standards developed. We want to update our codes to deal with developments like this, to think about where we put them. Karis has a pledge, and that is awesome. It's kind of like, like the Pinky Swear, or the Girl Scout pledge. We are actually looking for some legal enforcement. That's what we would like to see. But beyond that, I think that's the first step, because data centers aren't going away. But beyond that, we really need to look at how IMEA affects the energy from the data centers. Again, we're not like any other city. We have limitations due to the nature of our contract. And no matter what we vote on February 3rd or the 17th, whenever it comes up, we are still going to be with them for almost 10 years. So definitely, if you haven't talked to your city council members, let them know your concerns. Anything? Oh, Kathy, I can go back to the context of the council.
So I was thinking about that climate action plan, and we definitely need to pursue that. But as far as what's in that, do we need to, before that happens, have city council agree to some carbon reduction goals that align with evidence-based goals, so that the climate action plan will actually be robust enough to actually.
Absolutely. And that's, one of the reasons I brought up, waste, for example. And again, fantastic programs. We're super excited about them. We need to figure out what kind of reduction we need to see in our greenhouse gas emissions. Again, we would like to, in spite of the federal government's withdrawal from the global programs, we want to see how to comply, getting that 4% reduction a year, which even that is not going to get us to our goals globally. So yeah, it can't just be, we're going to do, some fun programs, plant native vegetation, or, even put solar on schools. Yes, we have things we need to do for the next 9 years, at least while we're with IMEA, but we also need to set, reach targets. So absolutely, we want city council not just to ask for a carbon action plan, but to ask for a carbon action plan that truly will make a difference in our emissions.
To emphasize that point, the 2036 plan, that was all envisioned. Get into a chicken and egg. I love the goals, want to do X% by X year. That usually has a financial cost associated with it. And so the problem is the city council, how do I approve this cut? So I know what that cost is. So I think it's a little bit, I think we need to help go past that.
Yeah, so the comment was, and we talked about this, the 2036 plan set great goals, but they weren't funded, and all of these cost money. So how do we balance that? And, one of the things I would say is all the costs are not financial. There are lots of other costs to our residents, to our society, if we don't make some progress. And so I think it's a matter of will, and it's a matter of priorities. And we have to convince the council that this is something that absolutely needs to be funded.
I was just going to add, in terms of one of the benefits of the climate action plan, which we saw when District 203 did it, 203 identified some opportunities where they could both save money and improve their emissions, because solar is the least expensive generation source globally. And so they're going to invest about $2 million in heat pumps and solar panels for District 203, and they're going to get $4 million in benefits from making that investment. So those are the kinds of investments that we improve affordability and we improve the environment. And it takes momentum. You know, we can't just stay with the status quo to get those kind of benefits, but there's financially viable ways to get there.
That's a really good point. And I think there's a lot of old thinking saying that, you know, oh, we can't afford to go green. We can't afford to give up coal. We can afford it. You'll be hearing from Joe and some people on energy when we have the IMEA vote, but it has been more expensive. So there are lots of ways we can become greener and save money. And I know there are some other questions.
Yes, how does the Illinois stretch code play? What aspects of that support on that?
Barbara, do you want to come talk to the stretch codes or, I mean, I am happy to. Obviously,
We understand better.
you know, so there are limitations to the stretch code because the stretch codes apply to new buildings and major renovations. So they are extremely important. They're going to make a difference long-term, but they're not going to make maybe the
Give
difference.
us any muscle behind what we're, no funding there that will.
But we don't need funding for the stretch codes. What we need is developers to stop telling lies about the cost,
Yeah, we've heard enough of those in the last 6 months.
about the cost of stretch codes. Because honestly, we have, you know, Barbara has done such a great job and has asked the developers, like, hey, can we see those numbers when you say it's going to cost $1 bazillion to put these into, and you know, that's when they care about all the poor people in Naperville. They don't want to put in the stretch codes. We can put in stretch codes in Naperville. We absolutely can. I know.
And along the lines of what Joe was saying, it's kind of an investment that upfront, that stretch code adoption may increase your building costs depending on the size of the development. $3,000, $7,000, it makes sense. Over the long term though, saving that homeowner or business
So
money and lower energy costs.
Barbara's saying that basically it pays off. And the other thing that's really important is as we electrify, the cost of retrofitting, I mean, you're going to save in energy costs. It's an investment that's going to pay off, but you know, not immediately and maybe not for the developers, but it will pay off. And the cost of retrofitting is far more expensive. So, you know, this is what people are going to be looking for. This is going to make Naperville a more attractive destination. And I think there was one over, oh, Carl.
I have a question for Ben.
A question for Ben. Ben, can you,
Well, the question, Ben, you were clear that you have constraints in your role. What's your list if you didn't have constraints?
so this is, the question is, Ben was king of Naperville. What would be on his bucket list?
This is being recorded. So I'll choose my words carefully. Thanks a lot for putting me on the spot, Carl. Say it again. You know, honestly, there was no collusion in this. I would say a climate action plan would be the first best thing to pursue because it would hold our feet to the fire and it would ensure that, like, yeah, I mean, Peyton and I don't have policy making authority. So a lot of the stuff we do, Teresa, you mentioned something about the fact that we can't rely on the kindness of developers. We need stuff codified. We need policies. And that's because everything that Peyton and I do, it's the stuff that isn't required. We don't have any regulating authority. We can't make policy if it makes sense. And so I think if the community is able to get together and get city council behind the idea of climate action plan, you know, one, Nest, you guys put so much great work into the 2036 report. But I think unfortunately, the way things work politically in a community at the council level, I think if we want to have a plan that has teeth and we budget for it, we need a third party, non-Naperville consultant who does this for a living to tell us what and how we need to do this. And I think we could do so much more. And Peyton and I can I actually, I'm going to stick with you for a moment. Sorry, because I know Fernando had another question. I would also really like to have the opportunity for full year composting and less expensive composting than is allowed through the group yard waste, combined yard and food waste cart. I don't own that contract. I appreciate the group is doing the free drop-off program with us for free and that they're coming back. So, you know, we take the wins we can get, but I'd like to see more food scrap, food waste composting. Let's see. I mean, I think the climate action plan is the biggest one. Also, the green purchasing program or policy that we've been talking about for years now. Carl, this is my answer to you. It was a January or February meeting at Nest over Zoom, 2022 or 3. And you said, what's the biggest thing that was a source of frustration? It's not having a sustainable procurement or green procurement policy in place. Unfortunately, I have not, even though we were told early on that there was support for this, and there were actually early drafts of something in 2012 that the city had considered. You know, we need to win over some more of our fellow staff still. So that's why we're going with relying on the kindness of our colleagues to do some training, and hopefully they make the right decisions. You know, hopefully they stop buying big sheets of styrofoam cups for the shared kitchens and the staff areas, among other things. So those are some big ones.
Actually, these are some questions that came in. It's great, Teresa, when you're talking about the climate action plan, some people online. One is, and then Ben, I think can address this, is the city or county currently partnering with any other in the country, either through ICLEI, I'll say it slowly, or otherwise, to leverage learnings from their climate action plan strategies and implementation plans? And then a kind of a complementary note there is kind of interesting too. As ICLEI members, Naperville's entitled to a greenhouse gas tracking platform. And so just wanted to get Ben's feedback on, as we are members of that, like if that's something that we think is something that's plausible to be able to start tracking and getting some real feedback and data, like you said, Teresa.
Yeah, ICLEI is better known as ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. It's an international group, and we are members. We're dues-paying members. We have been since I got approval, I think in 2022. And so we are aware, we're hyper aware of the fact that we can use their ClearPath software tool to help us do our own greenhouse gas emissions inventories in the future. And so that's really the reason. Actually, our dues went up this past year, and we had been told as staff, because we had some budget issues, that we should only be cutting, not adding. And so thankfully, the budget got passed. So we got the budget for that higher membership due. But the reason we wanted to make sure we keep involved in ICLEI as members is so we can use that free ClearPath 2.0 now is the new one. So we've been paid and I are on ICLEI calls often. We have a dedicated advisor that works with us when we have questions. And we've been on multiple training calls as they have announced and told us more about how ClearPath 2.0 will look. And yes, we do work with ICLEI and our counterparts in other communities around the country, but more specifically, a lot more here in Northeast Illinois. I mentioned the Midwest, Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, Midwest Climate Collaborative. Those are great groups. We actually started our own group of basically my counterparts right 6 months after I started here. It was 3 of us. It was myself, it was the person in Elgin, and the person in Northbrook. And we said, hey, we're kind of having some frustrations in our work, but we're seeing some success with certain things. Let's have a call once a month and just talk about what's going on informally. And so that group has continued on for the past 3+ years, and now we've got almost 20 members, either new staff or communities that have now gotten interested in engaging. And we talk about our budgets that we'll need for a greenhouse gas inventory or for a climate action plan. We've read many of our peers' climate action plans, so we feel like it's been our job to stay ready to hit the ground running if City Council directs us to do a climate action plan. Because we just want to be ready. We're ready to run when the time comes, if it comes.
Okay, thank you so much. Any more questions for tonight? Okay, we will leave this up for a minute. I would encourage you, I assume most of you know, but if you don't, you can provide public comment in person, written, and if an item is on the agenda, you can also just give it a yay or nay, up or down. So there are directions on how to do that. And believe me, the city council members pay attention. We meet with them often and we hear, I've gotten 72 letters and, 78 or whatever. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, they know their counts. We hear that all the time. And, again, if you don't feel like you're informed enough or you're not sure what to say, we can help you with that. But you can also just do the yes or no on any agenda item. All you have to do is put your name, the agenda item number or name, and do you support or do you oppose? So it's really easy to do, and I would encourage you. And I would also encourage you to email or call. Where it keeps going?
No.
Joe wants you to come to his meeting next month. But, call and let council know that you'd like to see a climate action plan. I will say, one of the things we hear all the time is, if we didn't go with IMEA, gosh, what would we do? Are there any other alternatives? Well, of course there is, because the majority of Illinois does not get their energy from coal. So come learn so that when people ask you that, you can help inform them about all the other ways we can get our energy. So that's it. Thank you for coming tonight.